Well, first of all, thank you for being here. I'm really pleased. It's my first time in Belgrade, and I really appreciate that the community is getting so vibrant all over Europe. And today, we're going to see a little adventure that starts like this, like a day or a life over and over again. Anybody gets the quote? Exactly. So the best piece about A/B testing comes from 1993, and it's the movie that gives this quote. So the Groundhog Day with Bill Murray. Who has seen the movie? Good. So what is the story? Pretty simple, the structure. The same guy lives the same day over and over again, refining his strategy throughout the day to get to the end. And what is the goal? The goal is actually to conquer the lady and to make her to fall in love with him. And when that happens at the end, I'm not going to tell you what happens, but he makes it. Recently, another movie decided to have the same structure, which is The Edge of Tomorrow with Tom Cruise. The main character, every time he dies, he starts the day over again. And every time he's refining till the end. Which is actually exactly like the best A/B testing, the best split testing experience ever. Because we start from the same, from a condition, and then we keep on iterating in conditions that are always the same, matched to each other, just keeping the best performing ones. It's a sort of natural selection, but with statistical significance. The problem is that in the movies, this repetition of condition doesn't have to fight the law of physics, and doesn't have to fight the law of business. And we all know that the law of physics and the law of business can be really harsh for us, right? They tend to be the deal breaker. So when I started working on A/B testing and usability testing, I started looking on Google, right? And what is the big thing that in the last few years came up in our industry? The so-called growth hacking, right? What is growth hacking? Well, it's a thing that if you search on Google, has almost 20 million results. And if you start getting into split testing, into optimization, you have to go through all of them. Because all of them are going to tell you how to do the best split test, how to do the best usability test, and the 5 things you need to remember when you conduct a test, and the 5 things that you need to be careful of when you do this, and the 10 things that you cannot forget when you go through the 5 things that are going to tell you how to do the other 5. Anyways, if you start from Google, you get here. And it's like, I know that I want to test stuff, but where should I start? So let's start from this. My name is Luca Sartoni. I work at Automatic, which is the company behind WordPress.com, and I'm working on Akismet, which is the anti-spam service that I hope many of you are using. How many of you are using Akismet? Good. 99.9% of the room? Well, but let's start from first things first. So these are cases that actually happened to me to witness, and usually it's the first time you get into tests. You have these 2 guys that they are in meeting rooms, in companies, and they go like this. Are we going with a blue or red button? In the past, they used to fight for 10 days, and nowadays they go like, oh, let's test it. This is not actually the best way to approach split testing or A/B testing, and we're going to get there. Another thing that happens most of the time is an endless discussion about the tool. So I get asked too, so what is the best tool to do A/B testing on WordPress? And these are the kind of answers that you can find if you go on Google or if you ask the community. You know, there are endless fights. Should I use Optimizely? Should I use Kissmetrics? Should I use custom code? Should I use Google experiments? Whatever. Again, we're not going to go too much deep into that. And at some point, when you gain your experience on split testing and you start to be a little more conscious about the math behind and statistical significance, you get into this. So if I mean 95% significance, but only for left-handed people with average card value equals to the square root of their age, should we deploy the variation? And of course, the other guy says, get the fuck out of here, right? Because with A/B testing, I noticed that you can go really simple, blue or red, or you can get really complicated, like that. So let's see how I would suggest to do it. We have a landing page, any landing page for any service, where we have 100 people that they see the page every day or every week or every month if you don't have a lot of traffic. And then we realize that only 10 of these people land on the pricing page, and out of 10, 4 complete the sign-up. So the 2 people that we had before in the discussion, now they step in and they say, why 90% leave on the first step? This is a very fair question, right? They see this massive drop and they start talking about it, and then the answer is, let's find it out and fix it. And here is where I suggest to start A/B testing and usability testing. Usability testing to find out why, or the most probable cause, and A/B testing to solve the problem. So, are these two the only tools that we have? Are these two the only tools that we have in our tool set that can improve our business, our site, our acquisition, our revenue? No, of course not. These are just 2 of the many things. Marketing analysis, expertise, consultants, trial and error, not necessarily going through A/B tests. All the traditional marketing that was before is not completely wiped out by new growth hacking strategies. But these are kind of effective. And yes, they have a better cost-benefit ratio. So a few months back, I was asked to give a presentation about just A/B testing. And I was looking for, you like it that I start from movies. And I was looking into something like, how can I give a few advice that can be like easy to follow? And of course, I started from another movie, which is Fight Club. And I took the 10 rules of Fight Club, and I turned into the 10 rules of A/B testing. And today we're going to see through them a little more in detail, because everything that you need to know to start is here. So rule number 1, you do not talk about A/B testing, which is very contradicting what I'm doing, but it's not this that I'm referring to. When I say this, I mean that your test needs to be seamless for the user or for the visitor. I don't even like to call them users. Let's call them people. When people approach your website, your pages, should not notice that there is a test going on. Should not have the feeling to be lab rats. And how do we do that? We make it disappear, right? Let's say that this is a way to tell our backend that we are running a test. If I see this, I immediately realize that there is a test going on and I'm part of variation 1. So let's mask a little more the query string to make it not that obvious, or let's use a technology that is on cookies. Which tool and how? Well, read the documentation, because the thing that you have to remember is make sure that users don't see the test coming. Rule number 2 is you do not talk about A/B testing. Who am I referring to now? Ourselves. We should not spend days and weeks discussing what to test and how to test it. I've seen many, many meetings where we should A/B test. On what? On that button. No. Let's start from there. No. Let's start from there. Discussions on discussions. So sort of a meta discussion on A/B testing doesn't make any sense. Start from something small enough to be deployed in a few days. Try and keep on iterating. Third rule, this applies if you are working on a larger environment. Let's say that you have different teams, you have different areas of your online business, and can happen that if you're testing a new page or a new button or a new flow, you're actually harming something else that is not in your domain. So what happens? The customer support raises a flag and says, some users are complaining about this, it doesn't work anymore. If you have the feeling that your test is responsible, just stop it. Stop it immediately. So as soon as someone claims something doesn't work, you stop the test, you fix it, and you start a new one. Because you never know what happens. You do a test for something small and probably you're gonna kill something big. Remember that you're still running on a live site with real people and with a real business. And you don't want other people to get mad at your tests. You want to embrace them. The fourth rule, it's 2 variations to a test. With modern tools, deploying 2 variations, 3 variations, 4 variations, 6 variations, 100 variations has roughly the same cost and the same complexity. However, every time you add a variation, you're going to make your test more difficult for yourself because it's going to take more time to reach significance. It's going to require more effort by your designers to design interface. It's going to require more time to your coders if there are bugs. So my advice is when you start with 2. You start probably with the old one and then with the new one as a proposal, as the variation, just one. And then you compare and you see what happens. And same happens regarding the number of tests that you want to run concurrently. Keep it simple and make sure that you get enough experience to make it difficult going forward. Again, on the topic of keeping it simple, don't start testing the entire site at the same time. Focus on little elements. Start from the content, start from a button, start from a few elements of design. Don't start from, oh, this is the old site, now we're going to A/B test against a new site. Start with, this is the old site, we're going to A/B test the checkout button, and that's it. And then we're going to test the landing page. 7th rule, tests will go as long as they have to. And this, to me, is the most important one. If you want to forget all the others, just remember this one. You start the test, you set it up, you start it, so people start to see it, and then you have people going like this, peeking at the numbers all the time. So I want to have real-time results for the test. And you're going to have like people staring at this graph or conversion every 5 minutes. And you're going to be one of those people. I tell you by experience, like at the very beginning, you're very excited about seeing visits and conversions, but that is not the way to do it. If you start to get excited about numbers, then you're going to start to bias yourself towards a result. You always want your variation to win, because for us it's more exciting. You know, have a new design and you want the new design to win. You don't want to stay with the old side. Or you start to cut corners and you're like, yeah, I said that I want 99 confidence, but 95 is good enough. Let's just cut it short. Or I said that this test is going to run for 2 months, but I'm going to do it for like 3 days because it's already winning. All of this comes because you have access to numbers. If you just put the numbers aside and you just respect your timing and you respect your math, you're going to get much better. And the 8th rule is if this is your first approach, you have to A/B test. And this comes every time you have someone showing up and saying, hey, you're the A/B test guy. Why don't we try this? Why don't we try that? And my answer is yes, give me a proposal, like you give me the page, and I will submit a test with that. And then over time, I'm going to also teach them how to do themselves and make them independent. Because the problem is if you are indicated as the A/B test person, that you're going to be the bottleneck for every single A/B test that needs to be run. And it's much better to educate designers, product managers, developers into testing things as a regular activity, rather than going to the A/B test guy every time I cannot make my mind about red or blue. But how about usability tests? How do they fall into this picture? Do we all know what usability tests are? Well, they're pretty simple. They're easier to describe than split testing. However, they are way more complicated to perform. So we design a product and we give it to someone to validate. Easy, right? Unfortunately not, because by nature we are very not willing to do so. So we have a wireframe for the new website and we don't want to show to anyone because we are afraid that someone says, oh, that's, we prefer to get to the end and then eventually get a harsh no, but at least the entire process was much easier for us because we go the direction we want. Reality is that as soon as you can validate your assumptions against someone that is not you, is so much better. So as soon as you have something that starts to get a direction, find someone and ask for feedback. Can be one of your peers, so a colleague, or can be someone completely out of the business. Doesn't have to give you like a super complete review of the product or the interface or the web page, but it's just enough that says, you know what, green against red doesn't work for me. Or what's that? As soon as you have a what's that, means that the product is not self-explaining, and probably you need to redesign parts of it. Because people tend to use things the way they want, not the way you want, right? You think that something is good for a purpose, and reality is that for some other people it's good for something else. Imagine, did you know that Flickr started as a video game, like a sort of a social game where pictures were just a little component, and then people started to upload pictures and they pivoted into a complete experience about pictures. And like that, many other projects that are online started in a direction, and then was the user interaction that took the project to take a deep and sudden steer toward a new adventure. So for usability testing, if you read the books and if you follow the guidelines, you take unbiased people and you put them in front of your product and you ask them to perform tasks. So if you have an e-commerce, you just tell people, go in and buy a t-shirt. And then you can do it remotely. So you have tools where people from their home, they just do it and you record the screen. Or you can do it in person where you have a facilitator and you have this person coming in, sitting in front of a computer. The computer can have different technologies, can just record the screen, can record the keyboard, can also record the person or his eye movements. And then studying the behavior of this person completing the task, we can get information out of it, like, was it easy? Was it fast enough? Was it confusing? Did this person was able to complete the purchase or not? And so you can read a lot of literature about it. There are books like Don't Make Me Think, or books like Rocket Surgery Made Easy, that actually tell you exactly how to perform tests. However, if you start doing it, you realize that parts of the most important experience that you can get out of that activity are not in books, because every single tester is different from the others, because cultural biases are not covered by books. So if you test something with a specific cultural, inside a cultural bubble, it doesn't work the same in another cultural bubble. And so I refined 3 advice more than rules for usability testing if you want to try that out. And the first one is, no matter how much time you spend and how refined is your test and how much money you put into it and how many tools you can provide, there is no chance that you can find a tester that is a real user or can be 100% covering the pattern of the real user. First of all, because we are already saying user, so we assume that is passive. But if we say people or person, we understand immediately that that person is active. So that is already separating the 2 personas. And then because there are activities that they cannot be simulated in a lab or not even at their home. Just to give you an example, imagine the sign-up process that we've seen before. People go on a landing page, they see a pricing, and then they have to sign up. If you do in a usability test on that, often we would focus on giving this person a task, which is go on this page and sign up. This person knows that he's under control, and even if he tries to behave in a very natural way, he's very motivated to get to the end because someone told them, get to the end. And so they're gonna struggle until they get to the end. It's gonna take a few minutes, maybe more, but they're gonna try their best to get to the end. But if you have an online service of any kind where signups are required, you know that your enemy is not that people don't know that they have to sign up. Your enemy is people that they get bored or they get distracted or they don't have enough time and they just quit. But your testers, they will never quit. Your testers, they will push a lot to get to the end. And real people, they just go on a side, and if they get distracted for any reason, they just close the tab and they go somewhere else. And that is very difficult to simulate if you think that people are not driven by different motivations. Then the second advice, don't get advice from your testers. If you ask someone to try a product, try to focus yourself into the issues that the person can find. So let's say that you are testing this design of a bottle, and if people tend to grab the bottle this way, and then they are unable to find the lid, it's already an indication. No matter if they come and say, you know what, I would put the opening on the side, because then it's easier. That is a job for an engineer, or for a user experience consultant, or for someone that knows the entire stack of problems that is behind that product. But users and testers are just meant to find the fact that they are not able to grab the bottle from the right end. If we want to really, really get mean, we can say, dude, if you can tell me what the problem is, you should be one of my engineers, not the guy on the other end of the table. And then people tend to talk a lot during this usability test. And my advice is just shut your ears, put plugs on, don't listen. Whatever people say, don't listen. Whatever they come with, don't listen. Just look at them. If they go on a page and it takes like 10 minutes to sign up, and then you ask, so how was it? That was easy. And the sign-up process was designed to last for 1 minute, and it took 10, no matter what they say. And they usually tend to be very vocal. Let them talk. Try to read between the lines, to hear between the lines, but don't listen too much at what they say, because they put a lot of cognitive biases in their comments. So, and this is something that puts together the usability testing and the split testing. And this was my life changer. So this was really the thing that made me do a big step forward in the results that I was getting. And this is the most simple technology that you can imagine. It's a piece of paper. If you all work in the same office, you just put on the wall. Or if you work remotely or you have separate branches, you do on Google Calendar. No, not actually on Google Calendar, on Google Spreadsheet. And you start logging all the tests that you do. And I have 4 status. The test can be running, so it's running now. Or it's ready to go, so everything is ready, just push a button and we can start. Work in progress are ideas that are not refined yet, or interfaces that are not ready for being tested, but they will be ready in a couple of weeks max. And completed are tests that are already done. So your goal is to get this part completed to get to infinite and beyond. Like, the more tests you're able to run, the more completed tests you have, the biggest is the knowledge that you can gather for your online business. And as you can see, I only have 1 test running. Sometimes there can be 2 if they are very far away on the same, on the site or in 2 different parts of the site, but very seldom. I tend to have 1 test running. And then in this ready to go and work in progress, you have authors, because I encourage everybody in the team to provide ideas that then they get incorporated in the work in progress tests. So no matter who's coming and says, you know, why don't we do this? And I'm like, good, write it there. There is an area where you can just provide rough ideas. And when I design the next test, I will incorporate into the test. And then the designer just goes there, look into the ideas in the work in progress, and provides the interfaces that have to be implemented. Then developers go there, they create the flows, and then the only thing to do is to turn the test on when it's time. And as you can see, the author, the results, but all in the central column we have the hypothesis. there is not a single test that can be run just for the sake of it. When you put something on a test environment, start with an hypothesis. Tell yourself, if I change this button from blue to red, I'm going to increment the conversion rate. If I use a Christmas mood during Christmas time, I can increase the average cart value. And then the test is not going to tell you how much. The test needs to tell you yes or no in a statistical way. On that, we can have, I can give you like resources to check your math or to check your tools. So in the long run, you need to get to this kind of situation where you remember we had 90% drop here, and now we were able to get to 60. So from, to 40. So from 90% drop to 40% drop, and we still have the same conversion rate here. And so what are these guys doing now? Well, now they realize that they got a pretty good win here, and it's time to move down and start working on this, right? Because the goal you want to get is to improve your business, but the way to do it is to keep kicking forever. Forever. There is no chance that you can throw a test, one, that gives you like plus 30% conversion rate. If you are able to design a test that scores plus 30% conversion rate, that means that you forgot to put the submit button, and now you're putting on. Or you forgot to link that button to the real checkout, because there is no chance that you can do that. And if you can do that, well, you should change your job. You should become like a seer with like a glass ball and just read the future, because there's much more money there. Testing works if you make it an iterative activity, like something that keeps on spinning, and you gain 1%, 0.5% every time. And for every time, I mean every 10 tests. 9 tests out of 10, they're going to be failure or neutral, which is almost the same. So you don't have enough proof that the change that you want to introduce is going to increment anything. And at the end, you're pretty happy. Thank you very much for your time.